Good day, friends. We are back with another little tech tip. Now, look, we do our best to try to give you infinite wisdom when it comes down to wheels and tires. We have been doing that for a while now, and if you look at our YouTube channel, you can find many examples of where we try to give you this infinite knowledge. And today is no different. Today we're going to focus on a real practical world situation about how you can figure out which wheels you're going to choose when you have big brakes, or if you have big brakes and you want to get new wheels, or vice versa. Let's get into it. What is going on? I'm Scott from Koenig, and on this episode of Wheel Tech, we're going to talk about big brakes and wheels and how you can put them together in all sorts of different scenarios. So when we consider wheels that are going to fit cars, there's a lot of different things that can affect a wheel fitment and how successfully it fits around a bigger brake. And that's something that you should understand, because when you go to the retailer's website and you search a wheel, and if they use the width, offset, diameter thing as the primary functions to decide what fits your car, it could get you into a lot of trouble. Things like spoke shape, spoke profile, lip size, inner barrel diameter, all these things can limit or prevent you from being able to put a big brake into a wheel, regardless of what the specs are for width and offset. So a lot of times people will say, oh, if you could just give me an 18.8 at a 35, it will fit my car. That doesn't always apply, and you should be really cautious of using that method to determine if the fitment is appropriate. Around a brake, you need roughly about 3.5 millimeters, so 3.5 millimeters of clearance all the way around the brake. This is for a few different reasons. One of them is going to be to allow flex to happen with the wheel. Remember, it's metal, but it still has movement, especially when it impacts stress points like road hazards. The other thing is, your brakes, depending on how hot they get, they're going to swell. Pads, if you put them in, they may, especially on a floating caliper, they may shift the caliper a little bit. And these are all things that you need to have a little bit of room for expansion on, and that's why we recommend 3.5 millimeters around the entire caliper to the wheel on all sides. All right, so there are some things that we should mention when we start talking about big brake fitment and wheels and all that complicated stuff. So the first thing we're gonna look at is obviously the spoke profile. And in the spoke profile, what we're essentially referencing is the fact that the spoke is gonna have a shape that's gonna change from the PCD area to the barrel. And whenever that happens, there's always a potential that the brake could essentially get in its way. Now, if this area was constantly flat, fully flat on any wheel, then there really wouldn't be anything to guess over, because you would have the most amount of room that you possibly had. The problem is that spoke thicknesses, spoke profiles, and spoke shapes, they change. And when they do, wherever the brake is positioned could potentially create an issue or a problem. So how do we get around that? And that's kind of what the brake template thing is for. So when we start talking about referencing a brake template or a brake caliper template or whatever you want to call it, this is a good example. This is a StopTech caliper template. And what you can see on the back here is they've put to scale the measurements of the different brake package and the different things that you need to note. So there's two ways this can be utilized. The first way that can be utilized is that you could send it to us. We convert this to a PDF. We use these measurements to verify that it's actually to scale. We put it into a 2D overlay drawing, and we're able to tell if this wheel will clear this particular brake kit. Now, the second way that you can do it is if you have this at home. Let me show you. It's by cutting it out to scale. See, you could cut your brake kit out to scale and create yourself a little template. Now, this template can be very, very useful, especially if you already have the wheel in your possession, because what it allows you to do is really check how this brake will fit. Now, one thing I will say before you go ahead and make this guy here is you're gonna wanna make sure that you are printing to scale. It's very, very important. Don't do fit to print. If you do any of that stuff, it's gonna alter how the caliper would come out, and the scale probably won't be correct. When you see these measurements, use them to verify that they match the measurements against your ruler, and then you know this is the scale. If you don't do that, there's a potential that you'll print this out of the wrong diameter, think it clears or it doesn't clear, and this will be totally junk. We wanna make sure that the center bore here, where the brake would sit, is perfect, and we wanna make sure it's completely flat against the back pad. And then we're gonna make sure that it completely turns around and clears not only the inner barrel diameter, but it also clears the back of the spoke. This is the perfect time to make sure that there is no interference at all on this wheel. And if you do that, you should be able to tell whether this brake kit will properly clear the wheel that you have in your own possession. So let's talk about these 3 scenarios that you potentially could run into as a car person in trying to put a wheel onto a car that has a big brake. In this situation, scenario number 1, let's assume that you have just went out and bought a really cool car, something that maybe you've been lusting after for a little bit. Let's use the Lancer Evolution. So you bought a Lancer Evolution, you bought an Evo 8, Evo 9, something to that effect. It comes with Brembo brakes on the car, okay? So you wanna be able to upgrade your wheel, but you're not exactly sure which wheel will fit. See, these cars are a little tougher to just go to a website and do the drop-down thing because a lot of websites are going to filter your wheel selection by offset and width. And the problem that you have is that right from the factory, the car really takes about a 17-inch wheel, 8-inch wide, about a 35 offset. So where does that put you if you use that same fitment requirements for an aftermarket wheel? Probably a wheel that's not going to clear that brake. How wide can we go? How much more aggressive can we go? And that is a good time to utilize a service like us. While you're typing the email, let's say, I just got a Lancer Evolution 8, and I would like to put some aftermarket wheels in the car. I'm thinking I want an 18-inch, and I'm thinking I want to go a little wider. What will fit? And then we will go ahead and try to find the right sizes that will work for you and that will clear the brakes in your car. So the next 2 scenarios are going to be a situation where we're talking about things with aftermarket brakes. Let's get into scenario number 2, and that is I just purchased a car that has an aftermarket big brake kit on it, and I don't like the wheels that came on the car. So I want to change them out. All you have to do here is figure out which brake kit you have on your car. Now, if you don't know, obviously that could be a cloudy point here. The first thing you should do is look at the caliper itself. It's going to usually have a logo on it. Now, maybe something like Brembo, Wilwood, maybe even StopTech. And from there, you can then take some measurements of the caliper, take some measurements of the rotor, send that information off to the brake company and see if they can help you by trying to figure out exactly which brake kit you have on your car. And as we mentioned before, you can always shoot us an email, fitment@konigwheels.com, where we help you make sure that you don't waste your money. So scenario number 3 is kind of the reverse situation of scenario number 2, and that is you bought some wheels that you already love. They fit the car great, they work great, you've already spent your hard-earned money, you have them. Now you want to upgrade a brake. Maybe you've been on the track doing some autocross, maybe you've been doing some, time attack stuff, and you realize that you're reaching the limits of the stock brakes that you have on your car. So it's time to upgrade. So you need to know what brake kit's gonna work. Well, so what we would say is at this point, look into some of the brake kits that you really like. We would go ahead and check that again, similar to scenario number 2, and make sure it's gonna work in the wheel package that you already have from us. Now, if you didn't buy our wheels, we can't help you with that part. However, if you're in the situation where you did buy our wheels, thank you. And we will be happy to check that out for you. Give us a few days. We do this a lot with race teams and different things. It takes time depending on the time of year. Sometimes we're really inundated, but we do our best to get back to you. Thanks for tuning in. We hope this was informative. We hope that we gave you real information that will help you out there in the world when you're accessorizing your vehicle, upgrading your brakes, upgrading your wheels, or just trying to make your car look tougher. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will catch you in the next one.